Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bella and I love all things design and DIY. And one of those DIY things that I am so passionate about is gardening. I live in Southern Ontario in Canada. It is freezing outside and currently absolutely covered in snow. There's no chance of getting any garden chores done outside at this time of year, but I can't help but just be so excited for the months ahead. So I thought I'd sit down and talk about some of the gardening things that I've kind of been accumulating recently and some exciting projects that I've been working on that have been giving me a little bit of garden spirit inside in the winter. I want to start by doing a little bit of a haul because Christmas just passed and my birthday was on the 14th of January, so I've got a few really fun garden related gifts that I want to show you. The first thing that I have right here was a gift from my boyfriend, and it's a gardener's journal from Lee Valley. This is a 10-year garden journal. Just look at how cute this is. Even when you open it, the inside is already adorable on the first page. This has planting records, harvesting records, perennial inventory. It's so in-depth. Date planted, plant name, quantity, location, flowering date, number of plants remaining in year, insect and disease control, date, plant, insect or disease, control use and result, year at a glance planner, and then it goes through and has a record of every day of the year and the weather on that day. Another really fun thing about this book is that for every day there's a different specimen name at the top, and then there's the Latin name for it, which is very exciting to me because I really want to get better at learning the Latin name for plants. Has all sorts of gardening tips in it. This is just like a one-stop book for everything garden related, and I'm very excited to start using this. One of the pages that's in here is a garden tool inventory, which brings me perfectly into the next gift that I received, which was a set of Kent and Stowe or Kent and Stowe, I'm not sure, but these tools I crush on every time I'm at the garden center, and so my mom bought a few of them for me for my birthday. First, I have this beautiful scoop for potting soil. I used this just the other day planting up some seeds and it was so fun. The next is a dibber. So this is for poking into the soil to make perfect seed holes. Like, look at how gorgeous these are. Oh, and then they have the little like brass hardware on them. Oh my god, they're stunning. And then the last tool is a widger, which is just this like really narrow kind of trowel shape. I'm not exactly sure what I'll use this for. I think this will be useful when I'm dealing with weeds that are like very close to other plants that I don't want to get rid of, or if I'm like pricking out little seedlings to put in the garden, just making like tiny little holes if I just have small plugs. So I'm just obsessed with these. They're gorgeous and I absolutely love the wooden handles on them. Can't get much better than that. I just think they're so charming. Another thing that I got for my birthday is this massive pot. It looks a lot smaller in camera, but this thing is huge and it's so heavy. So I'm really excited to plant that up come springtime. I'm not exactly sure what I see in it, but I like to have a few pots around my garden that I can move around, especially with like pollinator friendly plants in them. So last year I got a wildflower mix from West Coast Seeds, and then I kind of augmented it with different seeds that I had saved just to add a little bit more bulk, and then I winter sowed a bunch of containers of that seed, and it created the most beautiful plantings for containers. And a lot of these plants are really drought resistant, so it made really great low maintenance plantings for containers when it was a little bit drier and I wasn't as on top of watering as I could have been. One of my favorite Christmas presents that I've gotten so much use out of already is this book, The Complete Gardener by Monty Don. This is like all the gardening inspiration you could possibly need in one book, especially if you really love like English cottage garden sort of designs. This book will just send your imagination running wild. I mean, like, seriously, even again on the front page, like, already so much beauty going on in this book. There's a lot of information to be found in this thing. I think it's a nice balance where it's really easy for beginners to understand. It's very approachable in the way that it's written, but it still kind of gives you enough information that you feel like you're learning new things, and it's just going to make you so excited to garden. I want to talk about a few books that I've thrifted recently. I absolutely love going to thrift stores for gardening books. If you're just starting out and you don't want to invest a ton of money into something like the Monty Don book, I think it's maybe around $50, so that's a bit of an investment. Thrift store books are a great place to start because you can usually pick them up for like under $5. This is called Good Companions, A Guide to Gardening with Plants That Help Each Other by Bob Flowerdew. What an amazing name. It looks like this. It's just a little book, and I've actually found this to be quite useful. The illustrations are just stunning. It's so adorable. This is another book that contains a lot of the Latin names when it mentions any specimen, which again I find really useful. This is a book that I've had on my to-read list for a while. I haven't started it yet, but I managed to find a copy at Value Village. This is The War on Weeds in the Prairie West, an Environmental History by Clinton L. Evans, and it's basically an overview of the history of weeds in North America, specifically in the Canadian prairies, how they got here, where they came from, and kind of details like the fight against weeds, how we got to where we are today, what classifies a weed, all these kinds of things. I find the topic of weeds and what we consider to be weeds, what makes something a plant, what makes it a weed, what makes it invasive, all of these kinds of things I find very fascinating, so I'm really excited to read this book. This is another one that looks really interesting. This is called Plants from Roots to Riches. This is by Kathy Willis and Carolyn Fry. This is put out by the Kew Royal Botanical Gardens, I'm pretty sure, and it looks really interesting. It basically covers a few different species of plants and kind of what makes them valuable, the history of them, and how they got to be kind of as esteemed as they are today, which I think is really interesting. From the riches of Botany Bay to the horrors of the potato famine, from orchid hunters to the race to find a cure for malaria, understanding how plants work has changed our history. So that all sounds very interesting, and I'm excited to dive deeper into very specific plants. All of that stuff is just my favorite kind of thing to learn about. And then I picked up this really adorable notebook at the thrift store that was completely empty, and I really like it because it has blank pages, which I find really nice for garden notebooks, because a lot of times I like to just be a lot more like free form. I might sketch garden layouts or draw little sketches of different plants and things like that. So far I've started writing out my seed inventory, and it's pretty extensive, so I'm excited to actually have the chance to go through all of that in the springtime and start planting things. Another thing that I got for my birthday was a few PV Mart gift cards. If you don't know what PV Mart is, it's like a farm supply store, and that's where I buy a lot of my seeds. I haven't started actually buying seeds for the planting season in the garden yet, but one thing that I did purchase the other day was some microgreen seeds. This is my first time growing microgreens, and I'm so excited about them. So I picked up a bean mix. This is peas, lentils, and garbanzo beans. This is by Sprout Master. I want to say this was maybe like $20, which sounds expensive, but when you see how long these actually last and how much greens you get out of them and how much nutrients you get per dollar you spend, it's a great deal. I also got wheat. This is hard red winter wheat, also by Sprout Master. So this grows wheatgrass. The nice thing that I've learned about wheatgrass as a microgreen is that it's very nutritionally dense. You get a lot for a small amount and a good variety of nutrients, but also you can get 2 or 3 cuts out of the grass. If you don't cut it too short, you can kind of come back and cut it again a few times. So that means that this is all the more valuable. And this one was, I think, like $10 to $15. It was definitely one of the more affordable ones. I also got a few packages of fenugreek. I've never grown this before. I've never even eaten this, but I have heard that it can be really good for female hormones and especially minimizing PMS symptoms, which I'm very interested in because my PMS is a nightmare. These ones are by Mr. Fothergill's, and I've already planted up a package of these, and they sprouted almost overnight. Out of the 3 different trays I planted, the fenugreek was by far the quickest to sprout. I've never really been that into the idea of microgreens because it's just felt a little bit like finicky and tedious to me. I don't know why, because it's actually really low maintenance. You basically just have to give them light and keep them moist, and that's really it. And for the amount of nutrients that you get in that small little flat is just insane. And something like this wheatgrass, for example, let's say maximum this was $15. I think it might have even been less. This bag is completely full, and I used maybe an ounce of seed for one flat. I'd say that the flat I planted them in is maybe just a little bit over a square foot. They're a little bit smaller. But so say you got 10 servings of wheatgrass out of 1 ounce of seed, and then you were able to do 2 more harvests. So that's 30 servings for, I don't even know what kind of tiny fraction out of this whole thing of seed that would be. But you're basically looking at cents for 1 serving of such a nutrient dense product. You can throw them in smoothies, juices, salads, stir fries. You can dehydrate them and grind them into powders. Once you get past the idea of the fact that they're not the most traditional green to be eating for a lot of people, because they're pretty expensive when you buy them from the store, so I don't think it's something that people purchase and like cook with very often. But if you just get a little bit creative with it, go on Pinterest, look up microgreen recipes. There's so many things that you can do with them, and I think that they're going to be a really valuable staple coming up. And not to mention, you can grow them all year round, which if you're a gardener and you have that gardening itch in the off season like it is right now, this is the perfect project. Another perfect winter gardening project is mushrooms. This is another wonderful gift that I got from my boyfriend for Christmas this year. He bought me a little mushroom farm kit, and I will say I'm very sad that they didn't exactly work out the way that I wanted them to. They reached a certain point where they were growing really nicely, and then it seemed like they dried up overnight before I even had the chance to revive them. So I'm not exactly sure what happened. I'm trying to revive the rest of the spores to see if I can get a second growth out of them. I might even try and save it and throw it in the garden in the spring. I don't know. I don't know a lot about mushrooms, but regardless, this is such a fun project. I don't even really care that it didn't work out exactly the way that I wanted it to, because just watching them grow was so fun. I'll insert a picture. This is what they looked like when they started pinning, which basically means when they first start coming up and are visible. That growth happened overnight. They went from being nothing, literally just white fuzz, to that in the morning. And then after they start pinning, they can grow an inch a day. So it's the most exciting thing to watch happen. Mushrooms are just fascinating. The fact that all I had to do was cut this plastic open and mist it with water, and that happened, is wild. I think this would be such a fun project to do with kids. I can't see how a kid wouldn't want to try eating a mushroom after watching it grow like that. It's just the most exciting thing. The mushroom kit that I got was a pearl oyster mushroom kit, and it was from a company called Back to the Roots. A really nice thing that this company does also is if you grow one of their mushroom kits and share a picture of it on Instagram and tag them, and I think do a specific hashtag, they will donate a mushroom kit and a STEM curriculum kit to a classroom of your choice. Another really exciting thing that I'm actually looking at right now behind you is I have 2 pots of plants. One is a tree, and I don't remember the name of it, but my mom gave it to me. And this was planted up with many different plants in the bottom, and we cut them all back, and now some of the very stubborn roots are starting to grow back. So I have these little sprouts of plants that are popping up, and it's feeling like the beginning of spring when you're desperately looking in the soil to try to find something green sprouting out and trying to figure out what it is. It's just giving me that like springtime excitement. Another pot I have is a jasmine plant that was outside, planted up with some mint and lemon balm, and there must be something else in there. This thing, first of all, I swear the jasmine grows like as I blink. It's shooting towards the window. It has so many new tendrils poking up, but the mint that's growing in the pot is seriously thriving. It is so happy. It's sprouting up everywhere. And then I just noticed another new sprout coming up today as well. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's part of the jasmine. It's definitely not mint. So I'll be interested to keep my eye out on that. Whatever it was has just been sitting dormant and just recently decided it's time to come out. So we'll see what that turns into. Okay, upon further inspection, I filmed that about a week ago. I'm now realizing that this is a hosta that's popped up. This was just in a container outside, and I never thought that I'd be able to grow a hosta inside, but here we are. I think that's all I want to talk about today. This was just a short little video to kind of share my gardening excitement with you and hopefully get any of you fellow gardeners excited about some winter gardening things that you can be getting done. My recommendations: gardening books. You can fill hours and hours of your time researching at this time of year. It's a great time to just be soaking in as much knowledge as you possibly can. You won't remember it all by the time planting season comes along, but you'll absorb some of it. Microgreens and mushrooms, really fun gardening projects to do in the middle of winter. And pouring your energy into houseplants. I am such a houseplant convert now. I love them. I used to have no appreciation for them at all, but now I realize it is really just like gardening inside. So that's all for me today. I hope this video gave you a little bit of inspiration for the upcoming garden season. If it did, you can give it a like down below to let me know that you like gardening content, and you can also subscribe if you want to know every time I upload. And I'll see you back here next time.